Good afternoon, Who Dat Nation, and happy week 2 to our Bayou Blitz family. Not so happy if you're a New Orleans Saints fan, especially if you're an elderly Saints fan like myself. The hated, despicable, effing despisable San Francisco 49ers added yet another stab, Freddy Krueger type stab into your nightmares with a 26-21 defeat of the New Orleans Saints in the Superdome on Sunday afternoon. Here to recap it all, the horrors and otherwise, are your Bayou Blitz post-game hosts, myself, Bob Rose, and Brendan Boylan. Brendan, I don't even know where to start here.
I guess we'll start at the beginning. That's usually the best place to start. To start the game, defensively for the Saints, Mac Jones starts 0 of 4. I believe that was the first 2 drives. You had a little momentum. Spencer Rattler struggled to start the game, but did have that nice almost 40-yard completion. I think it was officially 39 yards to Rashid Shaheed. Looks like you're going to get some points out of the drive. Groupie for the second straight week, uncharacteristic miss, puts his job on the hot seat, I would believe. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where I want to start, is your defense does what they're supposed to do to start the game. Your offense was supposed to walk away with some sort of points, and you don't. I think it was shortly after that you started seeing Mac Jones get in a rhythm. I believe he completed his next 7 or 8 passes after that. And the defense from the first 2 drives looked to be a completely different defense from the rest of the game. Right? Those first 2 drives, they're getting pressure on Mac Jones. They're giving up a little bit in the run game, but nothing extravagant, nothing extraordinary. Obviously, you know that a guy like Christian McCaffrey is going to get his. But those first 2 drives, defensively, you looked really good. But when you can't reward your defense by putting points on the board, that's one thing. 2, when you go down, you have what I would think is really your first big play in the pass game of the season. Or explosive play, plays over 25 yards in the pass game. First real explosive play downfield. And you feel the Superdome starting to rock a little bit. And then all the air comes out of the building because you miss a field goal. And the fans are going, here we go again. There's a lot of San Francisco fans there as well.
Yeah.
So props to their fan base for traveling. That's not a hop, skip, and a jump type of trip from California.
Yeah, and shame to the Saints fans for allowing that many tickets to be available to be purchased by a visiting team. I'll just say it.
It's I can go both ways with that as a season ticket holder for a separate franchise myself. Right? If the team put a product on the field that I wanted to go watch,
I agree.
Right? So there's both sides of that coin. But yeah, I feel like right from the jump, I feel like the air was sucked out of the building. You had an opportunity to at least put some points on the board, have the dome rocking. And that's where it really started to crumble for the Saints defense. So let's start there before I get ahead of myself. Let's start there. The Saints defense looking entirely different after the first 2 drives.
Yeah, they did, and they made Mac friggin' Jones of all people, look like
really good.
to look like Joe Montana or Steve Young, from back in the older days of this rivalry. And this was a San Francisco offense not only without Brock Purdy, but without George Kittle, without Brandon Ayuk. Trent Williams, the left tackle, was hobbled. And they traded Deebo Samuel in the offseason. And the 49ers, like you said, basically had their way with the Saints in the passing game. I thought New Orleans did a relatively solid job of controlling the run. Mac had 55 yards, 55, 56 yards on the ground, but San Francisco averaged less than 4 yards per carry. You can't. if you hold a team to under 4 yards per carry, then you're controlling the running game fairly well. But then, like I said, you let Mac Jones beat you, and beat you with the likes of Tongas and Farrell. Ricky Pearsall is a darn good receiver. Juwan Jennings, pretty good receiver too. But Mac Jones was allowed the time to spread the ball out to 8 different receivers. Kellen Moore and the New Orleans offense, you might want to look at the game film and make a few notes. BTW. And Granderson, I thought, had a nice game. Brissy had a nice game. Alante Taylor had his moments, but really, like you said, after those first 2 drives, you couldn't get off the field once again in important situations. San Francisco was a ridiculous 8 of 15 on third downs. You're not going to win football games if that's your conversion rate on third downs on the defensive side. And it's. I know we'll talk about the offense in a second. I realize the defense, really the entire air and momentum went out of the Superdome, after New Orleans failed to capitalize on that first drive. People are going to vilify Groupie, and you know what? I'll get in line with you. But Olave dropping a touchdown pass, Jawan with 2 or 3 drops in the first half. The offense executed far better in the last 2.5 quarters, but to not come away with points on that first drive when you were in prime position to do so, you're putting too much stress on a defense that isn't great. We think it's going to be good to a little bit better than that. But I mean, early on in the season, every unit's going to have their lumps. So you need to put points on the board when you have the chance to. And the fact that the Saints didn't do that, and the defense really didn't back them up, the defense kept this team in the game last week against Arizona. The defense, I thought, was by far the worst of the 2 units this afternoon.
I would agree with that. I want to touch on Chris Olave, and maybe that's a good way to kind of pivot over to the offense, and we'll get back to the defense. Already today, through the game and now post-game, I'm already seeing the question being asked of, is Olave worth the money? Are the Saints going to put the money up for Chris Olave? That is more of a Bayou Blitz podcast conversation for a Wednesday than it is a post-game show. But I do want to kind of plant that seed in your mind and other people's minds today for future discussions. On the drop touchdown pass, the broadcast team said on a few occasions it was behind him. Rattler threw.
It was.
It was. It wasn't the best throw.
But it was still a catchable ball for any NFL caliber wide receiver. That's the way I look at it.
Is if you're going to demand the money that we think Chris Olave is going to demand this offseason, you got to catch that pass. You have to. Did he come back and have an okay game? Questionable. Some of the yards and catches were on these little 10-yard outs during those last few drives, and things that San Francisco was willing to give up. Of course, you look for your guy who has some of the surest hands on the team in those situations, but maybe a little padded stats. Not a great game for Chris.
To play devil's advocate, Chris had a really nice catch on that fourth quarter touchdown drive. But that's the kind of play that your number one receiver has to consistently make. And for those that feel, I love Chris Olave coming out of college. We both did.
We knocked that first round together. Remember that was
we did
one draft year that we got both of those picks correct.
But for a team that was spoiled for 15 plus years, having number one wideouts like Joe Horn, Marcus Colston, Michael Thomas, those guys make those catches. Lance Moore makes those catches. Chris Olave, be better. that's my analysis for Chris Olave. You're going to be you're going to be an NFL wide receiver. Be better. If you're going to be a number one wide receiver for any offense, be much better. And Chris hasn't been.
Yeah, through 2 weeks, certainly not. I thought Jawan bounced back well, right? Ended the game, 5 catches, 49 yards, big touchdown grab. Still concerning, right? Especially after how last week ended. Now, for the people who want to look at the analytic nerds and look at the analytical difficulty of that catch last week, and I don't want to go back to the last week at all, but I'll go just to this point. That was going to be one of the toughest catches recorded in a late game situation, right? But to have some of that maybe trickle over, and the two passes he dropped, it wasn't like it was a tough grab away from his body. I mean, you're talking went through his hands and hit him in the chest both times, maybe 3 times. But he did come back. He had a couple big moments. Of course, the touchdown, moved the chains a few times. And quite honestly, to put my fantasy hat on, go pick him up. At this point, he is a guy who, through 2 weeks, is one of the better scoring tight ends. So go pick him up if you haven't. I thought the offensive game plan was better today.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the only knock that I have is that we spoke so highly of Spencer Rattler in what I call the NASCAR situations, where you go tempo and you pick up the pace. I don't feel like the Saints utilized that as much as maybe they should have today. There were moments that they did, but I would have liked to see it a little bit more. I know that's easy for me to say because I'm not the one running the routes, but I would have liked to see it a little bit more. I was very pleased with getting Kamara more involved.
Mm-hmm.
Right, only 13 touches last week. He had 21 carries today to go with 3 or 4 receptions for 20 yards. But it was nice to see Kamara more involved in the offense. I'm still not a huge fan. Now, I understand I can't have it both ways, right? I can't have my cake and eat it too. But I'm not a huge fan of some of the designed runs that they are using Kamara for. It is still one of those going back to 19 and 20, particularly when we started seeing some of this play calling. And I know it's a completely different staff, completely different everything. But you even saw some of the visible frustrations in 19 and 20 of Kamara continuously being run through the middle. And I would have liked to see more off tackle, inside zones. There was one play in particular coming to the near sideline where they pulled the guard and the tackle, I believe, coming down, and Kamara was able to use those blocks, be patient, and pick up 9-10 yards. I like seeing things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We keep hearing how high this team is on Kendre Miller. He had 5 carries today for 8 yards. Not a great day, but Kendre is a bigger back than Kamara is. Why not use him in those situations? I'm nitpicking at this point. But
well, I also saw 2 or 3 snaps later in the game where both Alvin and Kendre were in the game at the same time, and neither I like it too, but neither one got the ball. I will call the offense in general a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot of things that I liked a lot better this week than I did last week. I still have a major gripe about Kamara's involvement in the passing game. He had 6 receptions, and if you have the football 101 for dummies 101 handbook, it is get the ball in your hand, in the hands of your best playmakers. And Olave had 6 catches. Shaheed was used a little bit more today. 4 catches, a few more targets where he was open, and Rattler just I can't describe the throw without dropping an F-bomb or 3. But Shaheed's getting starting to get more involved. But Kamara, Kellen Moore, Doug Nussmeier, Scott Tolzien, when you watch this game, when you watch the 49ers on offense and how they use Christian McCaffrey, maybe take a few notes. We used to see Alvin Kamara split out wide or motion out of the backfield, into a pattern often. And I'll die on this hill. Alvin Kamara is such a better receiver than Christian McCaffrey, a better natural downfield receiver. And you're just not seeing that. You're seeing Kamara get his screens and his checkdowns and stuff like that. And okay, like you said, Brendan, you like the involvement, but you still need to use his best attributes better. I think it's coming. Like I said, I saw more progress in that direction with not only Kamara, but even Olave trying to get the ball to him on the run. Shaheed's usage. We already know that Jawan is going to be a security blanket for Spencer Rattler. So from that aspect, I'm seeing some progress. You would like to see more usage from Kendre Miller, and Devon Bailey. I want to see him get more snaps too. I think that'll come with comfort level in the offense. I mean, he is still brand new to the system. Didn't even have training camp or preseason to work through it. And Spencer Rattler. I thought Spencer played a better game overall than what he did last week. There were a few throws I mentioned already to Shaheed, two of them to 22 for sure, where I just wanted to come through this TV screen and strangle Rattler. And a few other throws he needs to be on better target. But he looked like a more comfortable quarterback this week than what he did last week. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And before I continue on Spencer Rattler, I do want to give my flowers to the way that Kellen Moore is using Brandon Cooks. We didn't expect a whole lot out of Brandon Cooks this year, and we were kind of questioning how is he going to be used. He is being used like the sure-hand veteran that I was hoping he would be used as. And yes, it's only like 2 or 3 catches today and a couple of catches last week, but a couple of first downs and a couple opportunities for him to come into the game and, like I said, provide sure hands, which I can appreciate. But Spencer Rattler, I think the one thing about Spencer that I liked today was it was one of the first times in all of the film that I've seen of him. Now we're talking about 8 starts. So we're not talking about a small sample size. Like, we have enough to kind of say this is what Spencer Rattler is and this is what Spencer Rattler's not. Today was one of those days, and maybe the only other game I might point to is the Washington game last year, and that's because of the drive to get him down the field, where I watched the game for majority of it and said, you know what, Spencer Rattler is a comfortable NFL quarterback. I didn't say NFL starter, but comfortable NFL quarterback, capable NFL quarterback. I appreciated lowering the shoulder a few times on the run.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I have begged for years. It may not be exactly what I want, but you are seeing creativity. There was one play where he had Miller and Kamara to his left and his right, and then they motion Olave into the backfield, and he had like this weird pistol setup, and then allow him to, create some misdirection and hit somebody open. Those are the things I've been looking for, and just different and creativity. And that was the one thing about Pete Carmichael. You said you wanted to strangle Spencer Rattler on some throws. Throughout the last few years of Pete Carmichael, I wanted to strangle and just do something different, right? You've done the same thing for 20 years. Like, let's just see something different. So I like some of the creativity. I have liked the ability. I don't know if I'd call him a dual threat quarterback. I know that the broadcast called Spencer Rattler that a few times today. I wouldn't necessarily call him a dual threat quarterback, but he is a guy
I wouldn't go that far.
Athletic capabilities where he can make plays with his legs, which is very different than just about any quarterback we've seen in New Orleans outside of Taysom Hill for the last 20 years.
Yep.
I have liked that. I don't love the phrase because I think it's overused, but you did see a little bit of a dog in him to, go out, be aggressive, and make plays and try to make plays. You look at the stats, 25 of 34, 9 incompletions. The yards still aren't there. It's a lot of stuff underneath. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of things that are keeping the game simple, 1 read, 2 read, and then if it's not there, try to get something with your legs. That's what we expect, and we talked about that after the game last week as well. Those are things we expect out of Spencer Rattler. But the biggest thing is growth, week to week to week. And I saw a lot of growth this week. Better decision making, a little bit more of a control and understanding of the offense, relying on particular players, not getting too down on guys, right? Juwan drops 2-3 passes in the first half. Like, just give me passes. But Rattler still trusts him on a ball in the end zone, still trusts him to make plays. Even that third down play on the final drive where Juwan's one-on-one with Warner, and Rattler gave him a decent ball. He couldn't come up with it, but still trusting him, even though that he let you down earlier in the game. Those are things that I'm looking for, things that I've seen in growth for Spencer Rattler. I still think Tyler Shuck will get his opportunity at some point this year.
Yeah.
But I saw growth. I saw improvement. And like you said, it's still a work in progress, but you're starting to see some more comfortability out of Rattler.
Yeah, for sure. Now, 6.1 yards per attempt, while a moderate improvement over last week, still ridiculous. It's got to come up. You have to figure out a way to make plays downfield. And whether you liked him, hated him, or liked him then hated him, Derek Carr was such a better deep ball thrower than Spencer Rattler. That's just not what Spencer Rattler is, and he never was. He wasn't at South Carolina. He wasn't at Oklahoma. But you have a deep ball squad with the track team that you have in Shaheed, Olave, Cooks, and Trey Palmer also, who was inactive today. So if you don't have a quarterback that's going to get the ball to these speedsters down the field, then you need to get the ball to them on the move. Wide receiver screens, quick hitters, things like that. And you're right, exactly. But that's also a very timing based offense that does take time to pick up. And we know that Kellen Moore's offense is based off of a lot of timing things. So I do hope to see that develop in the next few weeks. Otherwise you have to openly question, why did you make this quarterback choice with this wide receiver room that you put together? The 2 + 2 just does not equal 4 with that offense right now. But at least we did see improvement, unlike the regression on the defensive side.
I want to talk about this and talk about offense. Not as many penalties in the second half. Right, and we can talk about the defensive penalties as well. More defensive penalties than offensive penalties today, but still an uncharacteristic holding call on Eric McCoy. Or then when you had Cesar Ruiz was 27 yards downfield for a pass and was ineligible. We can continue on Cesar Ruiz if you want for a couple different plays that were blown up in the backfield because he didn't know the snap had happened or just completely missed his assignment. But penalty-wise, on the offensive side, we did see a little bit less, which is nice, not as many pre-snap. But are you surprised, at least in the two instances that I brought up, McCoy, another uncharacteristic one, and then just how poor Cesar Ruiz played today, for a unit that has, outside of the left guard, played together a little bit, and Banks as well. I can't forget the first round pick, but you have 3 guys from the center to the right side that have played together, at least have a little bit of experience together. Are you surprised, even in a new offensive scheme, how poor the communication has been for the offensive line?
No, because they just simply didn't get enough reps together during the preseason. And am I disappointed by it? Yeah. But am I surprised? No. And it's the same thing. I don't want to harp on the defense because I'm going to be writing about how abysmal the secondary has been. or certainly was this afternoon. But it's the same issue. You have a unit that needs to work together to understand what the guy in front of you, what the guy behind you, what the guy beside of you, is apt to do in certain situations, whether down, distance, or facing a certain type of player. And the Saints' offensive line has not been able to get that. I thought Calvin Banks had another nice outing. I know he gave up a sack on Bosa, but that was one-on-one, and Nick Bosa beats a lot of players. Dylan Radunz, I thought, played a really strong game, especially as a run blocker. McCoy played. He didn't play as badly as he did last week, but you still expect better out of Eric McCoy. Fuaga, I thought, held up reasonably well considering he was hobbled. And Ruiz, man, I'd trade him for a used pack of gum at this point. I know they have no depth at this position, and it'll get a little bit better when Trevor Penning comes back, because then you can Radunz is your swing man, along with Asim Richards. But I mean, Cesar Ruiz has become an albatross, for this offense. If he's not the human turnstile up front, he's committing like idiotic running routes, idiotic penalties. His strength was supposed to be as a run blocker. I have yet to see that this year. You expect better. You need better from the offensive line as a whole. And Ruiz as a former number 1 draft choice. You're just not going to give up on a number 1 draft choice, especially when you have zero depth at a position. But my God, I stand by what I said at Albatross.
Yeah, it's been rough. I thought it was interesting that this was a game where pre-snap penalties, those type of things for the offensive line, better. You're facing a better defensive front seven than I think you did a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that they struggled more to protect Spencer Rattler today. Again, when you have a guy like Bosa on the other side, you have a guy that was drafted in the first round, of course you're going to have more struggles. But it was, you're a little bit better with penalties, but you're allowing more pressure. Or you're allowing more pressure, but you're giving that type of thing. I do want to go back to the defense just for a moment before we call it a day. I know you said you're going to write up on the defense. Oh, you know what? One more thing on the offense, because I just thought of it. More this week than last week, we saw pre-snap formations where Kamara was set up as the up man, almost, for lack of a better term. Does that worry you, concern you, anything that he's being asked to pick up the blitzer from that spot, opposed to maybe picking up the blitzer standing next to Rattler in the shotgun, or that he's being the guy asked to pick up the blitzer? Mark Ingram did that so well for so many years for the Saints. I don't really see a guy on the roster.
Right.
But to use a guy that is so vital to your offense, are you surprised by that decision or worried about that?
Neither. Because you need Kamara on the field. He's your best offensive weapon by far. And there are going to be times where he is going to be asked to pick up a blitzer. Do you like to see it? Absolutely not. But I mean, it needs to happen. Kellen Moore does not have a fullback on the roster. Kellen Moore has rarely utilized a fullback in his offense. So when Kamara is your lone back, there's going to be times where Kamara has to pick up that blitzer. Again, you don't like it, but it's almost a necessary evil when you run this kind of offense.
Sure. All right, let's go to defense. I thought it was a good game from Granderson. We already talked about that a little bit. Brian Bresee continuing to prove me wrong, because I didn't know where he fit in this. Not that I doubted his abilities. I just didn't know where he fit. And I think we've seen where he fits and how he fits. And we've seen him bat balls down, apply pressure, and do a lot of the things that we expected of him. We said it when he got drafted. This was not a guy that was going to put up stellar stats for you. But man, was he going to be an important glue guy on the defensive line. He was going to be a guy that if you liked watching film back and you appreciated things like that, you were going to really like him as a football player. Then he's still doing those things, and I'm happy for him. And he's proving that he could be a part of multiple defenses, scheme-wise, if he needed to be, and a guy that, if he stays healthy, should be a part of your defensive front for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So defensive line, I thought was good. You definitely need Chase Young back from injury. Fingers crossed that maybe next week's the week. But you definitely need a little bit more firepower there. Linebackers, I thought DeMario played pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I know, shock to no one, right? DeMario Davis played well, shock to no one. Pete Werner had some moments where I was like, okay, that was a good read. Particularly some of those tight end screens to McCaffrey. I felt like he read them well. He might not have got there, but he read them well. Okay, good. But there were also moments, particularly in the passing game, the Juwan Jennings touchdown in particular, where you're going, what are you doing?
Yep.
What are you doing? Why is there a hesitation? Why are you stepping up? Right? You're supposed to drop back into that zone. That is your assignment. And he gets behind him and, 40-something yard touchdown. I saw some people on Twitter already saying, well, you drafted Danny Stutzman. As much as I like that kid, I don't know if he's going to be any better in coverage. You like Jalen Ford a lot. That was one of your guys. That was the Rose stamp of approval. Was Jalen Ford. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like, oh, you got to look at benching him, but it's one of those. He's had a roller coaster career in coverage, right? I think he's pretty good in the run. I think you know what you're going to get. But in coverage, it's been a concern. It's been a liability. It's been a roller coaster. And what is the one thing that you and I have talked about for the nearly 200 of you tuning in with us? Thank you guys for tuning in. First off, for the nearly 200 of you that are here that have watched this show consistently or watched our draft coverage consistently for the last 5-6 years, however many years we've been doing it, what's the one thing we've talked about every draft or towards the end of every year is DeMario Davis is your best cover linebacker. Great. DeMario Davis is also how old, right? As good as he has been, you are seeing not massive steps of slowdown, but you are starting to see, okay, Father Time is undefeated, right? He's a little slower. Not like 3 steps slower, but he's a little slower. And what's the one thing we've asked? Who's the replacement? Who's going to be that guy in coverage? And it hasn't been Pete Werner. You draft Stutzman, who you and I both really like as a thumper, but not a guy that I'm going to really want in coverage one-on-one with guys, or even dropping that far back in the zone to go to that touchdown example. You have a guy like Jalen Ford, who I think is an athletic guy, but was a late-round draft pick for a reason. All that to be said, there's not a guy I think on this roster that could sit there and be like your cover linebacker. That's maybe a future problem, but it is also a current problem because you can't rely on DeMario Davis to do that all the time because then you take away the things that DeMario Davis is also really good at, attacking gaps, shooting gaps, all those things. I'm starting to question a little bit of what's the plan here for Pete Werner in the now and in the long term.
The problem is that they've had no plan for Pete Werner. Pete Werner is what he has always been, what I said he was on our Bayou Blitz draft coverage the night that they drafted him. Pete Werner is a very good linebacker defender against the run and around the line of scrimmage. Good instincts, aggressive, nice vision, shoots his gaps well, a nice downhill defender. Pete Werner is also completely clueless and utterly worthless in space. Now, Christian McCaffrey beats a lot of defensive players, linebackers, and even defensive backs. But the last person on this roster that you want to see lined up wide on Christian McCaffrey in a wide receiver position, Oh, by the way, Kellen Moore, Alvin Kamara used to do that pretty well, but I digress. The last person that you want to see out there is Pete Werner. And guess what happened? Twice. Uh, Pete Werner is the last guy that you want to see in a deep zone linebacker drop. The Jawan Jennings touchdown. He didn't get deep enough. Why? Because he was utterly clueless as to his awareness was zero. For you Madden fans, awareness zero of where he was on the field, where the receivers were around him, and his areas of responsibility. That is what Pete Werner is. That is what Pete Werner always has been. Very good against the run. Get him the hell off the field in obvious passing situations at the very least. That's why you have a Jalen Ford on the roster. That's why you have an Isaiah Stallbert on the roster. That's why you could drop down to four down linemen, Demario Davis, and the rest defensive backs. You have packages that you can play with. Do it, for Christ's sake. There.
Yeah. No, even watching that, and I'm going to be really curious to watch the all-22 of that particular play. Because they had a drag route coming from right to left.
That was covered underneath, by the way.
That was covered, right. But also was another 5+ yards away from him, which means you don't have to... First off, it's not your zone anyway, right? Mm-hmm. It's not your zone anyway. But if it's that far over, you don't need to step into it unless the ball's been thrown to him and you need to come up and make a tackle. But the ball was still in Mac Jones's hands. The drag route was that far. It just didn't make sense. Like, I would like to see it. Maybe there's something I didn't see. I doubt it, but maybe there's something I didn't see on the all-22 will show. But it didn't make sense.
And I'd like to say this too, and I know we're going to get off the air in a few minutes here. Isaac Yiadom is absolute trash. And that's the understatement of the year.
Very bad.
It is time to look at a Quincy Riley or a Rashawn Wright, or in base defense anyway, play Alontae Taylor as your outside cornerback. If you're running with 4 defensive backs and one of them has not been Alontae Taylor in your base, then you bench Yiadom's ass and you put Alontae Taylor in there. Alontae Taylor needs to be on the field more. And listen, I know he's on the field a lot. I don't have the today's snap counts in front of me. But if your choice is Isaac Yiadom or Alontae Taylor at outside cornerback, you play Alontae Taylor. I know it's slightly out of position for him, but my God, it can't be any worse than what Yiadom it was today. Was in week 1. It is time to sit his ass down and severely limit his snaps and just find someone else. Go to the rookie Riley, go to Alontae, go to Wright, go to someone else on your roster to see if they have an answer, because Yiadom is just beyond trash.
May I dangle Asante Samuel Jr. to you?
You may, if he's not a bobblehead right now.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the big thing, is like, where obviously the injury is not good if he has continued to go unsigned. But I'm sure that's something that Brandon Staley, who has experience with him, is keeping in his back pocket.
Sure.
Or at least, doing that corporate email thing. Is like, just checking back in, or having a little Post-it note on your desk that says text or email Asante Samuel Jr.'s agent every 3 months, or however long it might be.
I'd be doing it every 3 hours.
Every week. Hey, how's the neck? How's the neck? How's the neck? Are we good? Can we clear him? Can we good? Yeah. No, and just the secondary in general, I think that I'm still surprised there was not a signing this week or some move at safety. I know they're high on some guys.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not surprised, but I do see your point.
Just a veteran, just someone there. Well, here's a prime example. Justin Reed left the game for 1 snap. But prior to that, seeing him lay on the field, it was kind of a hold your breath moment because it didn't look great. Okay. I mean, comes back next snap. If you lose Reed for any extended amount of time, who the heck's playing safety? Right, a lot of unexperienced guys. I get it. Maybe you want to give them experience. Maybe you want to throw them to the fire. But shouldn't you at least look? And maybe they have. You know, I'm not in those meetings. I'm not in those rooms.
Right.
But I would expect that, opposed to, and this is something we'll talk about on Wednesday. I don't know how you feel about it. We haven't talked about it yet. But I would have rather them went and traded for or signed a safety opposed to trading for a receiver that's on injured reserve.
It's a Wednesday conversation. I like the move.
Conversation, but
yeah,
just another little like teaser is. I don't know how I feel about that one yet. I digress. Guys, thanks for tuning in. 40 minutes of our time. Bob, I know you want to get to our sponsor of today's show and all of our shows. So I will let you take it away from there. If you're ready, if you have the magical handy dandy notebook, as we like to call it. Yeah, it's always in your hand. Sometimes it's a notebook. Sometimes it's just a piece of paper.
I got two loose pieces of paper and an entire notebook that has not been thrown across the room in 2 games of action so far.
Whoa. Let me get the ticker going. Days without a Bob Rose meltdown. But with that, Bob, let's go ahead and talk about our friends at Get Checked or Check Out. Take it away.
Yes, the Bayou Blitz post-game show is brought to you by Get Checked or Check Out. See their website at the bottom of the screen. It's tcynow.org. Get Checked or Check Out is there for us, especially in medical concerns, medical emergencies, and medical issues, not just for the patient, but for the patient's family and loved ones too. If you get a diagnosis that just sends fear through every part of your being, don't know where to turn next for treatment, for therapy, for answers of any kind, that's why they're there. But even though they are there for us, they need our help to be there for us. So please donate now. Check out that website if you have any questions. It walks you through everything. And if you have a little bit extra money, donate, because you never know when you or a loved one could be the one to get that kind of news, that kind of dreaded news. And that's why Get Checked or Check Out is there for us at all times. But again, they need our help. They Get Checked or Check Out wants to emphasize that September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. This is the most common form of cancer in men outside of non-melanoma skin. And the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men outside of lung cancer. A common, somewhat misconception about prostate cancer is that it causes you to, a symptom is urinate more often or a weaker flow. That's not necessarily the case. Prostate cancer often has no early symptoms, giving even more importance for regular checkups and prostate exams. Because if this is caught before it spreads, prostate cancer has a 97% chance survival rate. Don't think that it's most common in older men, because other factors increase your chances of contracting prostate cancer, such as family history and genetics, high intake of dairy, calcium, folic acid, or vitamin E, and just a generally unhealthy diet. So please, make those checkups, get those exams, keep up on everything. Now, one of the handful of things, well, in fact, the biggest thing that Get Checked or Check Out does as a fundraiser is the Original Go Black and Gold Celebrity Charity Fan Cruise. In fact, one of our friends on the cruise, Mr. Michael Lewis, was honored by the New Orleans Saints today as one of their legends of the game. I don't think I can turn around all the way backwards, but I'm wearing my '84 Bayou Blitz shirt in honor of Michael Lewis. So congratulations to you, Mike, if you're watching. But the Original Go Black and Gold Celebrity charity fan cruise is the biggest fundraiser that Get Checked or Checkout does. So it gives you the opportunity to not only have a blast, have a vacation of a lifetime, but also donate to a great cause in the process. The 2026 cruise is going to be March 26th through March 30th and docking in the Bahamas this year. But you need to book your tickets now, make your cabin reservation now. You don't have to pay in full quite yet, but you do have to make a down payment to hold your room. And please do so as quickly as possible. They are going fast. I mentioned Mike Lewis is going to be one of the Saints on this year's cruise. He's going to be joining Delvin Breaux, Tyrone Hughes, Courtney Roby, and Pierre Thomas. Those are the ones confirmed. We do have others on the way. But again, this cruise is March 26th through March 30th. Make sure you book your cabins now. You can check out either the website at the bottom of the screen to do it, or text or email me for Summer Cochran's number at 7 Seas Travel. She is doing all the reservations, and make sure that you mention us and the Bayou Blitz when you book.
I know Bob's excited to get back on the cruise. I know that Bob is ready to win the putt-putt tournament this year, something that they did not do a year ago. Bob, all I'm saying, from what I've heard,
that hurts.
From the reports, you might need to go to the local mini golf spot for a couple trial rounds before you get on the boat. I'm
going to be practicing, but for what it's worth, I had a hole in one last year and 3 holes where I got where I sunk my putt in 2 strokes. So I was not the anchor that drug our team down. I'm not saying that any one of us necessarily were. I think it's good, but Team Roby, Team Courtney Roby, it's a redemption tour this year. Courtney is going to win this damn thing. And it's going to be because of us.
And Brendan may or may not donate weighted balls, but but you guys didn't hear that from me, guys. Until next week, until Wednesday. On Wednesday, Bob and I will talk about a plethora of other Saints news and have some other ideas after maybe watching a little bit of film from this one. So until then, I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy some good food. Shout out to my wife for making a handful of different things to snack on. Yeah, we had the buffalo chicken dip, jalapeno corn popper dip, and some meatballs and all that good stuff. So hopefully you guys get some of that. And until next week, hope you guys find some peace, spread love, practice positivity. We'll see you next week for another episode of the Bayou Blitz podcast. See you then.